Yes, indeed, people. We are here. I'd like to give a birthday shout out to my friend Kevin.
Cheers.
Cheers. Kevin, how was your birthday?
It was nice. It was a nice day. I got some earbuds, some AirPods.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm getting a pizza oven for my smoker. So we're going to make pizzas later this week. I should have it later this week.
Very nice. Well, welcome everyone to SHMO. So, birthday boy, what are we talking about today?
Today, we're talking about jobs we had while in high school.
All right.
Since I celebrated my 21st birthday for the 26th time, I figured it'd be a good time to reminisce about those high school jobs we had.
Awesome. So I got to admit, I only had a couple jobs in high school, part-time jobs, and one of them was after my senior year. So I'll have to throw in other jobs.
Let me ask you this question, sir.
Okay.
When it came to a job you had in high school or during high school, what were you looking for? Now, when we seek out jobs, we're looking for specific things. Of course, the work you're doing, how much it pays, benefits, all that. But in high school, it was a little bit different. What was it you were really looking for in a job during high school?
The first real job came my way between my junior and senior year. Somebody pitched my dad on having me help out on a construction site. So my first actual job was part-time framing houses. I worked for a general contractor.
Wow. About what age were you?
I was 15 and worked all summer. So about 3 months, almost 12 hours a day. We would go from about sun up to sundown. I think I made $3.50 an hour. That might be a little high.
Okay.
But I remember some things I remember about the job that really stand out. Number one, my first check was like $180. I was floored.
And you just thought it was the most money in the world. You kind of felt a little wealthy, didn't you?
Number two, I was in great shape. I was in the best shape of my life. I actually got pretty
Dusty. Were you buff?
I was totally buff, dude.
Nice.
I was totally buff. My senior year, a buddy was moving away and he was worried that I was just going to go off the cliff.
Mm-hmm.
So he was a busboy at a really nice restaurant. And he's like, why don't you consider applying? I'll get you in and just make some money. So he hooked me up. I became a busboy, but it was a really nice restaurant, and the waiter and waitress tip sharing thing, you could walk out of there with $100 a night, even as a busboy.
Yeah.
I just wanted the paycheck so I could do what I wanted to do, which was blow the money.
That's it. You just wanted the money. Spend it.
How about you? How would you answer that question?
Well, first, I had to have a friend working there.
Okay.
And second, I had to get some kind of discount. So those are my two criteria. Back then, my first job was at a McDonald's. So a buddy of mine that I was in class with my freshman year, he said, you can get a job at McDonald's even as a freshman in high school. I said, really? He said, yeah, I work there. I went and got a job there. It was, I think I only did it for like 3 or 4 months. I didn't like it, but I did it.
That's a long time, 3 or 4 months. I only lasted 3 months at the friggin' restaurant.
Right. And I quit because one of the managers said I was goofing around too much and I was insulted. So I quit. That's what we do. After that, I worked at a summer camp. I quit McDonald's probably early spring, finished off my freshman year, and then got a job at a summer camp. It was sponsored by Easter Seals. So all our campers had some kind of disability that they were working through. And that was a lot of fun. And it was when we weren't working, when we weren't working, when we were off, because I spent the summer there, I was maybe 15 at this point. We'd go across the street, there's this big cornfield, and somebody had cleared out an area, they called it the Oasis. And that is where I learned how to drink beer and smoke cigarettes.
Oh, okay, cigarettes.
Yeah. I'm sure the other stuff was going on, but I wasn't a part of that. I wasn't part of those kids. But
Smoking in the corn stalks.
I was smoking cigarettes and, well, started off with wine coolers because I was 15 and switched over to beer. And that's when I started to force myself to acquire that taste. I was what they called a camp aide, which was more like a glorified janitor and helper to anybody who said, hey, you come here and help me.
So you were looking for social interaction. You had to know somebody and you needed a discount of some kind.
Right. So funny you threw that back at me because that is the one job that didn't follow any of those criteria, but was just an amazing summer.
And that's where you picked up all your bad habits. But that was an amazing summer.
It was an amazing summer. I didn't go back to work the next summer there.
So after the working at the high-end restaurant, I quit one day and really scared me. My buddy had moved on to the Navy and I felt like such a disappointment. Like, oh, I let him down. I let everybody down. And I couldn't bear to tell my parents. So for 2 weeks, I was on the job hunt trying to find other jobs, but I would still take my uniform and go to a friend's house during the day. We would spray ketchup and mustard all over the uniform to make it look like I was working those 2 weeks.
You were just the messiest worker they ever had, huh?
There was a 2-week window there. I was so terrified of not working. And honestly, I think it has stayed with me. I've never not worked. I've never not worked since those 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And that has stayed with me for sure. But I landed my third job at the public library, downtown Albuquerque. So by this point, I'm still 17, 18, pushing 18. It's fall of 87. Everybody's either gone off to college or gone off to the Navy. I'm going to try to go to college. And I land a 40-hour-a-week job with benefits at the library.
What did you do at the library?
Put books away.
Oh. So did you get pretty familiar with the Dewey Decimal System?
I actually really, I started to read.
Oh.
I discovered, first book I pulled off the shelf was Douglas Adams' The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is still a favorite of mine. And I read, Ian Fleming had passed on the James Bond series to a guy named John Gardner.
Okay. Right.
And I read all the John Gardner James Bond books in about 6 months. I really did develop a love of reading. I applied for 2 jobs at the same time. Those weeks I was spraying ketchup and mustard all over the uniform.
Yeah.
I applied at a record store and I applied at the library. And I got job offers from both. But I took the library. And I don't know why I did that, but it was good for me.
Did you wear a tie?
No. How about you?
Gosh, so after McDonald's, after the Easter Seals camp, I'm pretty sure I got a job at a deli in the mall because my friend John worked there.
I know there's a story here.
Not this one. That's coming up soon.
Okay.
That story's coming up soon. I mean, this is the one and only job I actually got fired from in my life. But
wait, what? You got fired?
I got fired because I flushed macaroni and cheese down the toilet and it clogged the toilet. Yeah.
Because why? Why did you do it?
So the bird's eye view is area where we would wash dishes was kind of tucked back in this corner, and the people mopping the front of the deli and into the back where they cooked, and then it went around to where you wash dishes. They mopped the floor and then got to where I was, and they said, "Don't you dare walk over this wet floor until it's dry." And I'm back there washing dishes and everything. They took my trash can away and emptied all the trash. I'm draining the sinks. There's all this just deli crap in the bottom of the sink. And I had no trash can. I was like 16. I was told, "Don't you dare walk on this floor." What's behind me? The employee bathroom. So I just scooped everything up, flushed it down the toilet, thinking it's going away. And the next day, when I came in for work, they told me that I had clogged the drain. They had to bring in a plumber. It cost a lot of money, and that I was no longer working there.
Oh, drag. And it sounds like you were just being resourceful.
I was being resourceful. Later, I found, so I probably put myself in a unique situation where the owner of the deli happened to be my stepfather's ex-wife's brother.
Okay. I'm going to need some sort of chart, but continue.
Right. And his kids were the ones that, they were older. They were like late 20s, mid 20s. They really ran this deli in the mall, and they didn't really want me working there. So they came up with a good reason to get me out. But yeah, it was I learned a lot from that situation and who to trust and places you just don't bother working. And that was ridiculous of me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fast forward, I'm about 18, still working at the library. I managed to hold it down for, I think, a year.
Mm-hmm.
And a very good friend of mine came through one day he's like, "Hey, I'm doing this gig. I'm working for a guy who draws cartoons so it was a whole PR campaign around the disruption that the construction was making at the airport."
Mm-hmm.
And he had developed two cartoon characters called the Chili Brothers, a red chili and a green chili. And he needed some guys to jump around in chicken suits and interact with passengers so they wouldn't be so upset or so put out. So the signage throughout the airport directed people around the mess, "Please excuse our mess." And then they actually developed these large suits. I said, "Oh, I'd love to do that." So I jumped around in a chicken suit, made $10 an hour doing it. And we would go 4 hours at a time. These suits weighed 55 pounds. That gig, I did it while I was working at the library, with the PR campaign being in the paper and the characters being at the airport. The local Fox affiliate called and said, "We need content for in between our afternoon kids show block." So in between Scooby-Doo and G.I. Joe and stuff like that, we want to film the Chili Brothers. We'll pay you this much to develop the content. We made great money writing 30-second scripts and jumping around in these suits on top of being at the airport, where we would get together about 7 o'clock Monday morning, bang out the contracted amount of scripts on Monday morning. We would be in the studio by 10 or 11 that day, go out on site, and we would be done by 4 or 5 o'clock on Monday. Moved into show business. It was
awesome.
liberating, I got to tell you, because we had pitch shifters inside the suits, so we could actually talk. We weren't like Mickey Mouse, where you could just wave, but we could interact. We had speakers that hung down. We wore headsets, and we had pitch shifters.
Just for our listeners, my face right now looks elated. How much fun would that be? And you were 18, 19, 20? How fun.
And then we had to start doing live appearances at state fairs and water parks and stuff like
That's
that.
awesome.
I didn't really have anything to do between Tuesday and Sunday.
Right.
So I got a job. I went back to the record store, and she remembered me and she hired me. And I said, "Hey, I can only work Tuesday through Saturday." She's
And
like,
she
that's
said,
cool.
great, nobody comes in here except for Tuesday through Saturday. The record store. It's so funny. We've been hanging out how long now? And I think this is the first I've heard the Chili Brothers job.
So after the Philly family booted you out of their family business,
Uh-huh.
where did you land up?
After that, I feel like I worked at a grocery store. And of course, this is all back in Pennsylvania. So I worked at a Fox's Market as a bagger. I had a couple of friends that worked there. Worked my way up to cashier. So I scanned groceries. The scanner was still relatively new at that time, and it was pretty darn cool to have a job where I was the one scanning that stuff across. It was fun. But God forbid something didn't scan. I was in trouble then. I had to remember what to do at that point, how to do it manually. Whew, that was tough. Yeah. The first time I understood what it was like to work for a corporation. When I worked at McDonald's, I didn't really understand it. But by then I understood what it was like it was a small company, but it had several grocery store chains, and it was fun.
Nice. And how long were you at the grocery store?
I must have been there probably most of my junior year in high school. I think that's
We
where
want
I
to give a
was.
shout out to all our grocery store workers today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being there for us, putting yourself in harm's way. After the grocery store, I got a job at a Chick-fil-A in a mall. Back then, it was in the late 80s, early 90s. In my area, they were just in mall food courts. So I went back to a mall and worked at a mall again.
Were you handing out did they hand out samples back then?
We did, but there was this sweet older lady that worked with us. Her name was B, and she was our sample hander outer in the mall.
Nice. Any historic or famous memories you have of being at Chick-fil-A?
Well, thanks for asking, Dusty, because there was. At least from my perspective, it was. So there was this club in downtown Harrisburg, Pennsylvania called the Metron, where they would get some fairly well-known acts come through. And apparently one weekend, a little hip-hop group by the name of Digital Underground was playing the Metron that weekend. And I was working, and a couple of girls I worked with just started flipping out. I had no idea who they were. One of the girls I worked with came back and says, "Do you know who that is?" I said, "I have no idea who that is." She said, "That's the guys from Digital Underground." So Humpty apparently was there without his nose on, and apparently a gentleman by the name of Tupac Shakur had been there as well. And so I feel like I've become famous for making Tupac a chicken sandwich.
You heard it right here on the SHMO show.
The SHMO
Kevin
show.
made Tupac a chicken sandwich.
Whatever
I feel like that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. And that actually does kind of round out my last job during high school, because I worked there until I graduated. Then after I graduated, I left.
Yeah, the record store was really important to me. I met somebody really, really special who years later I ended up marrying.
Oh.
So there was a reason I had to go back and close that loop, working at the record store and then doing the Chili Brother gigs on the side, which brought in most of the money.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly kept me out of trouble while I should have been going to college. There was a short stint at the mall selling stuff at one of those little carts in the middle of the mall.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was another short stint as a dirt race track announcer I announced racing over the.
Really? Like, were you the Sunday guy? No
Yeah,
way.
I
How
was.
much fun?
It was like it was called Duke City Raceway. So they'd be like, and number 8 coming around in the final turn finds a wall, and we're under a yellow flag. Duke City Racing, brought to you by Oscar Mayer. For Major League Taste, it's Oscar Mayer.
How cool. Let me ask you this. When you worked at the little cart in the mall, right? Was working at a mall was just like they portrayed on Mallrats, was it not?
I don't remember Mallrats that much, but yeah, I mean,
you got to know people that worked at different stores. They'd either come to the deli that I worked at and we get to know them there, or we would, during our breaks, we'd walk around the mall. There was this girl, her name was Allison, who worked at a kiosk, a vitamin kiosk, where all they did was sell different vitamins. And I'd go and flirt with her and she'd give me free vitamin C.
Lots of memories baked into the mall, but working there wasn't the best.
Yeah.
For me.
My favorite thing in high school at the mall was just walking around and all my friends, we all wore trench coats and we thought we were some kind of 80s band.
From the Matrix?
Yeah. Even pre-Matrix. We just thought it was pretty darn cool.
Some specific things I remember about the mall. I bought a Joker pin in the run up to the 89 Burton Batman movie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Batman was really starting to be everywhere all the time when that movie came out. And I remember.
I was working at the deli. It must have been 87 or 88 because I remember after work going with my friends to go watch Rattle and Hum.
Any other jobs that you want to give honorable mention to?
No, because I think sometime we should do jobs that we did in our 20s before.
I'm done.
Oh, gosh. Maybe I'll do another show and you can ask me about my jobs during the 20s because I still have a whole bunch even before I went into the Army at 22. I still have a whole bunch of jobs going on.
All right. Anything else?
Do me a favor. I know right in front of you, you have a wall full of mixtapes, right? Close your eyes. Folks, he's nodding his head yes. Close your eyes and grab one without knocking the whole thing down.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Ooh, oh, good. What do you got? 17 is the name of this mix.
When you work at a record store, everything's alphabetized by artist.
Mm-hmm.
If it turns into various artists, to keep it in the back, they title it ZZ. Like ZZ Top was the last artist, and then everything after that was ZZ. So I started a series. I started a series of mixtapes called ZZ Various, and it goes ZZ Various 1 through, I'm looking at them now, 1 through 40. I made 40 samplers over several years, and I'm looking at it now. It goes ZZ Various 15, ZZ Various 16. I never made a ZZ Various 17.
Oh.
And yet I did, but I wanted to name this tape 17. I wanted it to stand out separate from the series because 17 just happens to be my favorite number.
Yes, we are going to do some shows where we really dig into your mixes because I think many of our listeners want to understand Dusty's brain when he's making the mixtape. So this is going to be fun.
All right. Well, we want to thank everybody for joining in. You can like and or subscribe to our podcast. We're trying to get the ground game going here because we have no budget and we're in our infancy. But if you would tell someone else about the SHMO podcast, we would certainly appreciate it. You can comment and suggest, in the spirit of all things Good and Foley, we thank you for your time today. Kevin, anything else?
I just want to reiterate our thanks and just stay SHMO.
Stay SHMO, people.
Stay SHMO.
We'll see you next time, kids.
Have a good day. Have a good one.